The whole Liam Kumar Day effect, not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I've rang up Mendon all, he said he could make
Don't
it.
dig this hole. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has to. He is a shocking personality. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-bit.
No, my life from Rashad Mendon.
Right, you guys, I'm a tag jack! I'm a fucking tag!
We're back and we're heading in to the 11th hour of the LFC regular season. Today, you only have a dynamic duo, but what a dynamic duo to have. Obviously, Coach Merritt has returned and joined us again. How's it going, Coach?
It's good. It feels like I haven't been back for ages.
Yeah? You missed last week, right?
Yeah, and the emergence of Nigel as the next big pundit.
Absolutely.
I have enjoyed his emergence. It's been very entertaining. For those who hasn't seen the chat, it's the switch from very sporting to very ridiculous comments. It's been very fun.
What the world didn't need was another Phil Merritt, and that's exactly what it got. So
He doesn't have my style or my record, so
that's very true. Actually, I'm going to let that one slide. Usually, I'll hammer you for a comment like that, but that was actually factually based, so I'll let that one slide.
okay.
But with that, should we get to the league news?
Absolutely. Let's go.
Here it is, league news. Okay, so the injury list this week reads a little bit more like a shopping list for your bi-weekly shop. So it's a pretty long one. Start off with Jordan Reed. He went down with a supposed MCL sprain in the Sunday game, but he played through it and he's not even on the injury report now, so I guess that's nothing. Michael Floyd missed last week's game with the hamstring injury. Logged him limited practices this week, questionable to play. Alshon Jeffrey, he missed last week's game. He returned this week and played in the Thanksgiving game. We'll get to those later. Dexter McCluster suffered a nasty-looking injury last week. I think it was a knee injury. Would not expect him to play this weekend. Zach Ertz also suffered a nasty-looking injury. He took a big hit, kind of got upended and landed on his neck head area. Not ideal. He is out with a concussion and did not play. John Brown continuing to deal with his bum hamstrings as he has done all season. Ryan Matthews still in the concussion protocol, missed the Thanksgiving game. Devontae Freeman also in the concussion protocol, and I've heard today he will not play on Sunday, so Tevin Coleman will be the starter. Jarvis Landry has a knee injury. He's limited, but he will play, as will Larry Fitzgerald, despite having an ankle injury. But Joe Flacco, bizarrely, is now out for the rest of the season. I don't know if you saw this, Phil, but no one really saw Joe Flacco get injured at the end of the game on Sunday in the Ravens win. But Flacco tore his ACL and I believe MCL as well. On the very last,
He pulled up, didn't he?
Yeah,
but he was able to carry on, and they obviously kicked the field goal to win the game.
Yeah, it was bizarre. It was bizarre. Yeah, it was on the very last drive. I think it was his own lineman that kind of fell into his knee and it just kind of started twang. He kind of jogged off the field, favoring it. But yeah, as you say, he kind of lost few plays. So an odd one, that one. Big loss for them. And the curse continues to the homosexuals,
And the Ravens.
And the Ravens, of course. Carlos Hyde did not play last week with his continuing foot injury. His timetable really is up in the air. I have no idea what's going on with him. Rested through the bye, came back, still didn't play, so God only knows what's going on there. I would not expect him to play this week. Matt Forte returned on the Thanksgiving game from the knee injury he had. Kendall Wright has also been battling a knee injury. He should be back this Sunday as well. Mike Ingram has a shoulder injury, limited. He will play on Sunday. Doug Bolden had a nasty-looking ankle injury on Sunday. But from what I've seen, he's practicing and he'll be back out there again this weekend. Danny Amendola, otherwise known as Julian Edelman Mark II, got his knee injured. Thankfully, not as severely as Edelman injured his foot. He was limited yesterday, did not practice the day before. From what I've read, if he gets in a limited or better today, he should play Sunday, but that is no guarantee. Darren McFadden popped up on the injury report with a groin problem, but he played yesterday. Frank Gore suffered a quad injury in the Colts win last weekend that forced him to sit out the remainder of the game, but from what I've seen, he should be back and ready to go. Brian Hoyer sat out last week too. Amazingly, TJ Yates actually was competent, which was to the surprise of everyone, I think. He's passed the concussion protocol, and he will be back this weekend. Emmanuel Sanders missed last weekend as well. A lot of players missed last weekend, huh? He has a foot and finger problem, I think, but I think he should be back this weekend. Chris Johnson has a knee injury. He's limited, but he should play. Charkandrick West pulled up lame with a hamstring problem in Sunday's game. He has not practiced. I would anticipate he sits on Sunday. Martellus Bennett, he's got a rib injury. He did not play yesterday. Anquan Bolden returned after his multi-week knee injury last week, so he'll be good to go again this week. Somewhat big one here, Marshawn Lynch for Pakistan. He kind of popped up with the abdominal injury a couple of weeks back. He played through it last weekend, but under further evaluation, he will now pretty much miss at least probably the rest of the fantasy season, maybe the rest of the regular season as well. Some sort of sports hernia injury there. Malcolm Floyd, I think he's been practicing after he sat out last week. He's had that shoulder labrum problem. Usually it's a season ender, but it's the last year of his career, so he wants to tough it out. I'm not sure if he'll go on Sunday. Finally, one of the biggest ones as well, Justin Forsett. He broke his arm on Sunday and will miss the rest of the season. So that's a lot of injuries right there, isn't it, Phil?
That is. Are we going to mention the even bigger one that happened last night?
Which was? Which was?
It was a certain Mr. Romo.
Oh, of course. How could I forget? Yes.
How could you forget?
Yeah, because I think I was going to cover it. But no, we'll talk about it. So Tony Romo, obviously, missed, 10 weeks? He missed a lot of time. With a broken collarbone, fractured left clavicle, something like that. Essentially, high re-injury risk, and that's exactly what happened. He got drilled into the turf. All his weight fell on that shoulder, and so re-injured it. He'll be out for the rest of the season. So the homosexuals curse, as I just said, continues with quarterbacks. So you better hope he doesn't get your team's quarterback. So with that, we'll take a quick look at the transactions, of which you can imagine there were quite a few in the wake of all these injuries. So starting off, Fudge Flyers out of the Kansas City Chiefs and dropped Jacksonville Jaguars. Pakistan added Javorius Allen and dropped Isaiah Crowell. Astute ad there. What do you think about
that? Well, that was a good ad in the wake of the Forsett injury, and Pat needs some strengthening at running back, especially after losing Marshawn. So he's now got two young running backs who he can experiment on in the last few weeks of what's been, a disappointing season. So he may put the cat amongst the pigeons with this ad if Allen performs.
Absolutely. Bedene's added Devin Funchess and dropped Jonathan Grimes. Thomas Tyrants added Ahmad Bradshaw and dropped J.J. Obviously, Bradshaw filled in, but with Gore coming back, unclear what his role will be. Ben Necessity's added Brian Hoyer and dropped Marcus Mariota. They're really scraping the bottom of the barrel since they lost Andrew Luck. Gridiron Gang added Spencer Ware and dropped Alfred Morris. The Dream Team added Kendall Wright and dropped C.J. Spiller. The Tugpod added Jason Myers and dropped Blair Walsh. Bedene's added Jameis Winston and dropped Antonio Gates. Do you want to talk about this one on both fronts, Phil? It's kind of interesting both ways.
Well, Winston obviously threw for 5 touchdowns. But Destinators has obviously lost Manning for probably the rest of the fantasy season. So it sort of makes sense because Winston's improving, but I'm not sure about dropping Gates unless he thinks Ladarius Green's going to sort of overtake him within the Chargers. So, and let's be honest, the Chargers haven't been good this season. So, I don't know. It's fairly sort of. Wouldn't say it's a high risk move.
Absolutely. Ben Necessity's added Chandler Catanzaro and dropped Matt Bryan. The Dream Team added Cincinnati Bengals and dropped Dan Bailey. Added Elton Red Zone added Shane Vereen and dropped Robbie Gold. The top 5 added Ruben Randall and dropped Jacob Tammy. Tom Starnes added Cleveland Browns and dropped Oakland Raiders. Bedenes added Dwayne Harris and dropped Ryan Fitzpatrick. Forge Flyers added Kirk Cousins and dropped Tyrod Taylor. The Top Cards added Mike Nugent and dropped Jason Myers. The Dream Team added Sebastian Janikowski and dropped Justin Forsett. Tom Starnes added Green Bay Packers and dropped Cleveland Browns. Forge Flyers added Alfred Morris and dropped Robbie Green Beckham. And finally, the Dream Team added Blair Walsh and dropped Sebastian Janikowski. A lot of moves I do not care about this week. So many kickers. So many
flipping well.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's all the transactions. So we'll get straight to last week. And last week was a god-awful week, so we won't spend too much time on this. And, it's god-awful when this was the best game. Don't get me wrong, it was an interesting game, but I don't think anyone had it for probably the marquee matchup of the week, and that's what it ended up being. The Detonators took on the Dream Team last week. Obviously, the Detonators, they were 4-6. It's not a bad season, but if you looked at how they perform, they're just having a terrible time of it. The Dream Team kind of rolling. They took the lead in that division. They've kind of held on to it for a while. The history of this matchup, I believe the Detonators were 3-5. Yep, they were against the Dream Team before this game. And to be fair, they pulled off a minor upset after rebounding from a horrible, horrible week. The Detonators take this one 111-95. What do you make of this game, Phil?
Yeah, this was I think this is the Detonators. This was their final chance. It was do or die really for them, facing the division leaders. And what a big victory! Bearing in mind what they did last week, where they scored around about 40 points, and then suddenly to go, post the highest score of the week was critical for them. The Dream Team, they're not an easy team to beat, but it was a very good week for the Bear Detonators. I don't sort of see where it came from. I'm not sure really where anyone saw it came from. They got some good ads though, and it's good they're finally scoring a quarterback with Wilson obviously getting a fair amount.
Yep, you're absolutely right. So we'll just mosey on to all the games because they're all pretty much as bad as the other ones. So Jeff Seals took on terrible week. Jeff Seals took on Andy Dalton Red Zone. Excuse me. History of this matchup. Jeff Seals actually held a winning record over ADOZ coming into this game. 2-1 against them all time. Both of these teams, ADLZ, I think with a win, they would have basically locked up playoffs for themselves. While Jeff Seals, obviously with a win, would have inched closer to the division lead and obviously get their nose in the playoff race. But the way it turned was the team that's won a lot this season kept winning. ADLZ won a really boring game, 78-54. Please don't spend too much time on this one, Phil, but do tell me about it.
Well, it's a case again of Jeff Seals sort of having a very inconsistent season, and whenever ADRZ plays anyone, they have a terrible week. It's just ridiculous again. Just none of the Jeff Seals team turned up. They had wide receiver corps scored they scored half a point exactly. Their running back scored just over 10. There wasn't really anything there for anyone. Aaron Rodgers was fairly average. And Andy Dalton's Red Zone posted a very poor week, but they did what they needed to again. And I guess you can only play what's put in front of you. And ADRZ now going to the playoffs, 100%.
Yep. Was losing Julian Edelman the straw that broke the camel's back for Jeff Seals?
Maybe.
They'd been winning. They'd been winning with him. Without Bell, they'd been winning, right? I think they won 3 on the trot without Bell. And then Edelman's gone down, and it's almost like the house of cards has fell through.
They still have some good players on that team. Obviously, Bell was the big injury. They were never going to make the playoffs with Bell out because there's just no depth on that team anymore.
Yeah. So our next game here, Pakistan against Forge Flyers. These teams have only ever faced each other once earlier in the season, and Pakistan took that one. So they're 1-0 over them, but really both these teams just having a bad season. Some would say Forge Flyers are the better team. Both of these teams were coming in at 3-7, so obviously the loser would be in last place. Another pretty dull game. It was kind of close, but it was pretty dull. Pakistan undefeated against Foot Flyers all time, 72-61. Both of these teams either or going to the James Milner Bowl.
Well, with the luck of Forge Flyers, they haven't had a very good season, Forge Flyers, but they have not had any luck whatsoever. The only luck they've had is obviously picking up Devonta Freeman. Besides from that, they've had horrendous weeks when they've needed to, like when they've needed to score points, or they've had just teams just like outmuscle them, like by posting like huge scores. Forge Flyers are a better team on paper than they have been performing within this season, and I think what actually rubs it in for Chris is that Pakistan obviously didn't change Marshawn Lynch for Thomas Rawls and still lost. And he still won. So like it's a bit of a ridiculous season for Forge Flyers. I wouldn't want to be in his position. But I think at least one of these teams will be going to the James Milner Bowl.
Mm-hmm. Both of them almost certainly going to the Week 15 bracket anyway. Our next game here, I'm sure you'll want to get through this one swiftly. The Tugfards took on the Romosexuals. The Romosexuals coming into this game, not only did they notch a win over the Tugfards earlier in the season, they were actually undefeated against the Tugfards all time. I think maybe your only bogey team. Scanning down your records, actually, you've only got a losing record against the Romosexuals. Pat, obviously, you've only faced them once, but Tom's Tyrants as well. You're 5-8 against them. So, one of your bogey teams, I think it's fair to say. Obviously, Tugfards are in the lead in the division coming into the week. Could have possibly lost it, depending what happened in the Gridiron Gang, Ignan game. While the Romosexuals just trying to keep up with the rest of the division. And fair to say, they pulled off another upset, and they're now undefeated against you, 3-0, 89-73. Do the Romosexuals have a credible chance to make the playoffs?
No. Things have conspired against the Romosexuals for this week. They've they've lost two quarterbacks in a week. It seems that Matt Forsay is not the number one running back in Chicago anymore. And they're all right wide receiver. But I think, the three teams ahead of them are just too strong at this point. I think, they've had their luck they've ridden their luck throughout the season. And I think, to be honest, 5 and 6 is a little bit kind on this team because they haven't played smart all season. They seem to have the number of me at this point. I don't know what it is, but if I played Matt Ryan, I would have won that game by less than half a point. So, technically it was my fault, but there we go. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next game here. Our next game is what we pegged as the marquee matchup going into the week. Obviously didn't turn out that way. Gridiron Gang took on Ignan. This matchup, historically, very, very one-sided. Entering this game, Gridiron Gang were 3-9 against Ignan. So just terrible. Yeah, just terrible. Obviously, both these teams, Ignan really needed a win to realistically stay in the playoff race. And a win, it's crazy at the stage where a loss would have crippled them. A win actually gives them an exceedingly good chance. It's bizarre. While Gridiron Gang were hoping to win to possibly to take the division lead back, depending what happened in the Tugfards game. Both these teams, it wasn't a pretty game really. Both teams didn't really do well outside of two players on either team, to be fair. But the final score, Ignan 98-78, and Ignan become the first team in the LOC to win 10 times against one team. They're now 10-3 against Gridiron Gang. And
Wow.
I'll let you talk about this while I weep into my shirt quietly.
Well, I was weeping in the when I was describing my week, but it was sort of a very close matchup had it not been for Cam Newton. I mean, he's the difference maker he's been the difference maker for Icknan. He continues to be. He's arguably the MVP, and this was a really big game. You must have been licking your lips when Martellus Bennett was called as inactive. That's this week. Sorry, but I mean, like some of the players there, they scored really low. Like Jones he fumbled and only got 12 yards. Martellus Bennett was held for only 26. Andre Ellington had very little, but Icknan, their best players came out and scored, and the Gridiron Gang just couldn't match it. I think you've been affected a lot by Brady's sort of his sort of not nosedive, but his dive in the fantasy scoring, and you're becoming increasingly reliant on DeAndre Hopkins.
I won't disagree with that.
But you're getting Eddie Lacy back, and he's returning to form. So I wouldn't say this is. To be honest, man, you're 6-5. It's not a crucial loss. You're still just as It's a 3-horse race for the Winchester division title,
and then there's a wild card to go around as well. So yeah,
absolutely. One team is going to be disappointed. I don't think Gridiron Gang necessarily are completely out of the race because of this loss.
So our last game here, Ben Assisties took on Tom's Tyrants, which we played coming into the season as a really interesting game. The history books, Ben Assisties and Tom's Tyrants are level against each other. They were 3-3 entering this game. Obviously, Ben Assisties wanted to win. They wanted to put pressure, even more pressure on the Dream Team. Turns out they lost, so a win possibly meant they would have overtaken them. I'm not sure how the points are right now, but they would have been level on record for sure. Well, the Tom Tyrants really needed a win just to keep up. They would have been 4-7 if they lost this game and realistically out of the playoff race. They won 2 coming into this game, and they made it a third, and they've completely screwed up another division. Southampton division's a mess now as well. 99-76. Can Tom Tyrants pull off another miracle?
I bloody hope not. I mean, this was actually a good loss for everyone in the Winchester division because Ben Assesses obviously were at 5-5 and were the biggest threat, and now they're much less of a threat going into the final couple of weeks. Tom's Tyrants are peaking, but I wouldn't necessarily. I think they've given themselves too much to do. With the next few weeks. I'm not going to say they're not because I don't want to have egg on my face. And Tom's Tyrants are known for their sort of late season sort of big finishes, but I think just this time they've got a little bit too much to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair. And obviously last season 2-5 was when they turned it around and obviously won 8 of the last 9 games to win the title. They were 2-6 this season, so they're just trying to one-up themselves every time, really, aren't they? So that was all the games of last week. We'll take a quick look at some milestones and what have you. So obviously, you, Phil, can't get past the 60th win just yet. Still on 60 wins, but still leading the LOC, of course.
Absolutely.
What else happened last week? So the Detonators, Ollie Burdett, Coach Burdett, notched his 50th regular season win. Great achievement there. With the loss, I am now 1 win away from 50 all-time regular season losses.
Oh no!
Well,
the big 5-0.
Yeah, I know, right? What else is occurring? ADLZ, they're 2 wins away from a level all-time record. They'd be 35-35, 1 win away from a level regular season record, 34-34. And that's about it for the milestones. So we'll take a quick look at the standings. And as I said, the divisions are pretty screwed up right now and pretty ridiculous. I think it is it, am I right in saying 9 teams are at least 6 and 5? Sorry, 9 teams are 6 and 5 or 5 and 6. And 2 divisions are all 6 and 5 or 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Which is just, Southampton, 1 6 and 5 team leading up that division. That's the dream team. And everyone else, Ben Assistis, Tom Sarrett, and Bedetne is in that order on points, all 5 and 6. Realistically, Bedetne is so far behind in the points. They're going to have to get a win over either the winner of the division or the wildcard team to make playoffs. But all the other teams there have within 40 points. 40 points is the margin. So pretty close division. Portsmouth division, however, a completely different story. ADRZ leading that up 9 and 2. As we said, I think they have clinched playoffs now and effectively clinched their division. Jeff Seals with the loss, they dropped to 6 and 5, still in the playoff race, but I think, as you said, that they're the worst 6 and 5 team, arguably one of the worst teams in the league. They're not a credible playoff team. While Pakistan 4 and 7, they move off the bottom and swap with Forge Flyers, who drop to 3 and 8 and go to the bottom. And then finally, we got the Winchester division. We got 3 teams on 6 and 5. Iknan, after beating Gridiron Gang, move up to the top. Tugfards drop 1 to 2nd, and obviously, as I said, Gridiron Gang 3rd. Points a little different here again. Gridiron Gang's 50 points behind the Tugfards, but the Tugfards and Iknan are fairly close to each other. So not impossible for Gridiron Gang to make up, but again, they're probably going to need a win over at least the wildcard team if they don't win the division. And the Roman Sexuals at the bottom there, 5 and 6. They're on even less points, so they're in the same situation as Bedetonators, really. Funnily enough, I just want to point this out, Iknan, with 1 win, moved up 5 spots overall.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
so that kind of tells you how close it is. Yep, that's the standing. So we'll go straight to the power rankings now. As always, I'll just read out where the teams are and how they've moved, and I'll let you go at it. So right at the top, we've got a new entry at number 1. The Dream Team moves up from 2 to number 1, with Ben Assistis dropping from number 1 for the first time in quite a while, I think. They're down to 2 now. Iknan, they've moved up 2. They've gone from 5 to number 3, while ADRZ have dropped down to number 4. Tugfards also notched down 1 to number 5. Tom's Tyrants entering the top half for the first time in a while. They've come up from 7th to 6th. While Gridiron Gang swap with them, they're down to 7th. The Roman Sexuals and Forward Flyers both holding their 8 and 9 respectively. But Detonators with a good performance and a win, they move up to 10 from 12. Pakistan holding at 11, and with Jeff Seals posting just a miserable week and looking like a rudderless ship once again, they drop to the bottom at number 12. What do you make of the power rankings?
Well, Nigel's still not going to be very happy. Not being first, he's still down 4th. I can imagine he has a few words to say about that. I don't know. I'm not sure about the dream team at the top. I'm not sure bare necessities are second because they've got injury issues. They've lost Luck, who's a very important player, and they're struggling at QB, and they're really, really struggling now to make the playoffs with that loss. After that, other than that, looking down, Jeff Seals. I think to be 6 and 5 and have the team that they have, bearing in mind they're in the Portsmouth division, I don't think they're 12th. I mean, I'd put them a little bit higher. Outside
of Rogers, Jeffrey, and Cooper, they literally have nothing, and that's not an exaggeration.
I agree, but they're 6 and 5, man. They're
because they had Bell and Elman.
I don't know. I don't think they're 12. I think they're low, but they're not as bad. But yeah, it was a good league story. Yeah,
sure. So we'll mosey on to next week's games now. So our marquee matchup for next week, I don't think there's an obvious one, but I've chose one for the history, and it does have pretty big playoff
Yes.
implications.
I know exactly what you're.
Yeah, it's a Corona Bowl rematch. The Tugfards take on the Detonators. We all know everyone likes this one, except the Detonators, of course, as we all know, because the Tugfards are 8-1 against them all time. So tremendous. But obviously, we all know how it goes. The one they lost, it's the only one that mattered for the title. In Corona Bowl, was it 4, 5?
4 or 5, one of the two.
Five, I think. So apologies. Entering this game, obviously, Banana is 5-6, Tugfard 6-5, both vying for playoff spots one way or another. Projections currently have this one 121-90. Banana has already have 35 points from the Thanksgiving game. That's from 3 players, McFadden, Murray, and the Panthers D. So I'll let you talk about this game. What do you think? What's going to happen?
Well, we're into squeaky bum time now, and a loss for one of these teams this week is going to knock them out of the running, I think, because the Tugfards have 2 difficult matchups coming after this, and the Bird Detonators are really, they haven't got a lot of points. And they're behind in their division. So a loss here knocks one of these teams out. The question is, who is it going to go to? Obviously, Bird Detonators had a really horrendous start with Murray and then sort of McFadden, but the Panthers have sort of bailed them out. And we now have a long wait until Sunday at 6 o'clock when, was it 1, 2, 3, 4... 5, 6 players go from the Tugfards at 6 o'clock game. So crucial time between 6 and 9.
7, I think, isn't it? Yeah,
6 or 7, and
7,
yeah. So those 3 hours are going to be big. The Tugfards need their players to come good. They had a poor, and they need to respond. And history of this matchup says that the Tugfards win this game, but we'll be taking nothing for granted. So. I'm obviously going to take myself because it's the regular season. I'm safe, and we'll see. But nervous about this one.
Sure. I'm not sure. I'm gonna. Before the Thursday night game, I probably would have said you as well. But I know 35 points is definitely not insurmountable. And when you look, the 2 running backs only combined for 10. But when your defense gets 25, that's a pretty significant edge. But be that as it may, I do think your team, out of the players remaining, certainly has the most talent. Russell Wilson, I think, really is the only player that kind of scares me on Bedenes. Outside of that, I'm not sure. He'll definitely get some points, to get me wrong, but I don't know what else is there. Whereas your team, obviously, you've still got your best players left to go, and you've got some good ones at that. So I think I'll go with you as well, but I think it will probably be tighter. Than we may think.
The Cardinals are going to chew San Francisco. They're going to chew it. They're going to.
You just wait. Blaine Gabbert 3 touchdowns. I'm telling you.
Blaine Gabbert is not going to get a touchdown.
We're not getting into this. I told you it was just the Jags holding him back. Anyway, so our next game here.
Not true.
ADRC take on Benecestes. This is a fun matchup for so many reasons, of which I'm sure you're all aware. History of this one, ADLZ actually have the edge, 4-2 over them, and there's been some chirping going on the message board this week.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure both these guys would love to get one over each other right now. ADLZ at this point playing for shits and giggles, they've already made the playoffs. But Benecestes, pressure is on. They actually need to win this game. I think if they lose, you can probably count them out of the playoff race. I think it's fair to say. Projections have this one pretty lopsided, actually. 127 to 89 in favor of ADLZ. Jonathan Stewart played in the Thursday Thanksgiving game. He got 7.7. So, basically. What do you think is going to happen in this game? Can Benecestes pull it off?
They are severe underdogs at this point. They're going to need Gronk and Marshall and Sanders and their big players to go apeshit at this point. ADRZ, here's a big stat. Their opponents on average a game have scored 82 points against them. Now, if you compare that to someone with bare necessities, their opponents score 104 points against them every week. So you can kind of see why ADRZ are so comfortable, and I think it's going to, they're going to get it again because, Stewart is one of Dave's big players, and he's only gone up for 7.7 points, and especially in a game that Carolina really dominated as well, which is surprising. So I don't see anything else bar an ADRZ win. But, and here's a big but, it's only going to take a couple of players for bare necessities to get them towards over that sort of like 100 mark. And can Nige get over that? Because they haven't been scoring that high over the past couple of weeks. They've been getting severely good luck, and it might just be that they sort of abandon that luck this week.
Who are you picking?
I'm gonna go ADRZ because I don't see it. I don't think that Dave has enough currently.
Sure. Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. Ever since the Jamal Charles injury, I don't know. It's just kind of like ADRZ haven't quite been the same. They weren't lighting up the scoreboard with him, though they were putting up some real nice scores. Had he still been healthy, I think they would have been lighting it up because obviously Todd Gurley stepped in and performed well as well. Yeah. But they've just been a bit, they've been very consistent. Don't get me wrong. They've been a very, very consistent team. Last week, I think, was, I'm not going to look at it too deeply. Every team did badly last week, but they've been very consistent. Earlier in the season, this would have been a great matchup because obviously Ben Estes were tearing it up too. But the team where they are now, I think you hit a nail on the head. Losing Luck, it was a big, injury. They're also without West this week as well. I think he's actually been one of their better players over the last few weeks as well. So I think that's a really under the radar big loss for them. I agree with you. I just don't see the firepower. I don't see any firepower on Ben Estes enough to light up the scoreboard, which is probably what they'll have to do to beat ADRZ. That being said, ADRZ down week. Could I see another down week? Possibly, but form is on their side. Make of it what you will. They do have 9 wins, so I'm going to go with them as well.
It don't matter for ADRZ anyway if they lose this game, apart from the fact that if I win this game, I'm going to start making a run for my regular season, and then he's going to have to. If I overtake Nige, then he's going to call me Bill Belichick of the LOC. That is something worth going for.
Absolutely. Okay, so going on to our next game, Ignan are taking on Pakistan. So I think this is the first time Ignan have ever played Pakistan. Yes, it is. So entering this game, obviously two sides of a very different coin. Ignan currently in first place in the Winchester division at 6-5, while Pakistan 4-7. They're not making the playoffs, so they can just play to upset, right? The projections have this one going 102-87 to Ignan. Some games already happened on Thanksgiving, so the scores in this one are 17-9. I think both teams had 2 players play. Yeah, that's right. Cam got 17.8, and Martellus Bennett did not play. He was inactive, so he got a big fat 0 for Ignan. And on Pakistan's side of the ball, Randall Cobb got 7.4, and the Eagles got 2. Can Pakistan cause an upset, is my question to you, Phil.
Do you know what? Yesterday, I would have said yes. And then Pat picked up the Eagles D after 3 weeks in the mire. And, it's just like, Pat, he's done this. He's had some of these decisions over this season. And he has a real chance of winning this week, what with Martellus Bennett being inactive. And, his defense has got 2 points. Randall Cobb's got 74, which is sort of okay, but not spectacular. And he's put himself under real pressure because he could have forced an upset here. So, but he's got a much improved lineup. It looks a lot better than it did a couple of weeks ago. They've got some good players, so it's still on, but they've made it very difficult for themselves. And to be honest, Ignan have as well with not changing Martellus Bennett. Maybe that's just confidence because they're playing Pakistan. But
Yeah,
I think I'll take Icknam because this team they are one of the best teams, and they're facing an inexperienced coach. And I see Icknam taking this.
Mm-hmm, sure. Yeah, I mean, every week I kind of look at Icknam's team and I'm thinking, I always kind of think their ceiling is about 100 points because the running backs, on any given week, it would not surprise anyone if the running backs combined for like 5, right? And we look at those great receivers, but I think very rarely do these receivers all seem to perform on the same week, which was obviously the game plan coming into the season. That being said, I completely agree. They're definitely the better team at this point in the season. I think Pakistan could challenge for this one. They've got a few nice pieces. They've got Woodhead and Rules. Dalton on his day is pretty good too. Stephon Diggs. I think, it could be a bit closer than we might think, and I agree completely with the Eagles comment. I saw he was signing the Eagles and I kind of got knocked back by that alone. You know what I mean? It was no decision. Yeah. But yeah, I think I'll agree. I'll take Icknam too. So we'll go to our next game. Gridiron Gang take on Jeff's Seals. Both of these teams coming in fresh off of a loss. The history of this matchup, Gridiron Gang are 2-0 against Jeff Seals. So they've never lost to Jeff Seals. And projections in this one have that trend continuing, 112-79 in favor of Gridiron Gang. Both these teams obviously still in the playoff race, both actually 6-5. So the winner of this could possibly at least have the wild card to their name after the game. So on Thursday, Gridiron Gang had Eddie Lacy, who got 17.9, while Jeff Seals had Rogers and Jeffrey, who combined for 24. Who's going to win this one? Who's going to go to 7-5?
Well, it's pretty close one. This Jeff Seals have an opportunity because Gridiron Gang have a few sort of bad matchups. Although they do have DeAndre Hopkins playing the Saints, which is a guaranteed 40 points. No, I see Gridiron Gang taking this. I mean, Jeff Seals, they have strength there as much as we said. There's it's a poor team and it is very diminished after the injuries, but they had an opportunity. They needed Aaron Rodgers and Jeffrey to score touchdowns, and they didn't score touchdowns. So I think Gridiron Gang will take this fairly comfortable, provided their matchups come through, and some of their bad ones, like Brady and Miller, don't score too poorly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. Brady and Miller, obviously two of my best players, with two of the toughest matchups, really. But also, both of these players have kind of proved they're matchup proof at the same time. So I think they'll at least be able to do something. But I think, as you say, the strength of my team this week will undoubtedly be in the receiving core, where I think all of my receivers are playing bottom-ranked passing defenses. Steve Johnson's against the Jags, Hopkins against the Saints, Jackson against the Giants. So, I think, yep.
I'm not a massive fan of Stevie Johnson against even against the Jags. I mean, San Diego's in a massive.
They are in a rut. Yeah, they are in a rut. But he's the number one receiver, so who knows? But yeah, I agree. I think my team takes it.
Yeah.
So our next game here, Forge Flyers take on Tom's Tyrants. History of this matchup: Forge Flyers are 2-5 all time against Tom's Tyrants. In this one, obviously, both these teams in opposite directions. Forge Flyers at 3-8, they're just playing to upset right now, while Tom's Tyrants 5-6. They need to keep the wins coming. They've got 3 in a row. They need to make it a 4th to give them a shot for the playoffs. The projections have this one going to Forge Flyers 123-116, and there were a few players playing in this game yesterday. So Calvin Johnson got 27 for Forge Flyers, 3 touchdown performance, great day for him. While on Tom Tyrant's side of the ball, he had 3 players play and only amassed 25. Bryant got 2.5, Gano got 17, so that was pretty good, and Packers got 6. Can Forge Flyers end Tom's Tyrant's playoff hopes?
Well, yesterday I was thinking, oh God, Tom's Tyrants. Look at who they got next. Who they got this week? They're facing the bottom ranked team in the mire. No luck whatsoever. Here we go again. They're gonna do this, aren't they? But then yesterday happened, and a complete disaster for Tom's Tyrants. I mean, you couldn't make that up. 6 points from the Packers and 2 points from Des Bryant. Only made slightly sweeter by Graham Gano scoring for 17, and he missed one as well, which would have been a useful 3 points. And to not even outscore, the one player that Forge Flyers have puts their team under a real strain. Luckily, Toms have got their big players playing on Sunday, and they will need to make amends because Chris has got a fabulous chance now of taking this matchup and ending. I don't know. I think this is quite close. I think this is going to be very, very close now. It's quite difficult to call this one. I'm going to say Forge Flyers because this is their week. They have the opportunity to do it. They've taken out 3 players and are still leading, despite having only fielded one yesterday. So it's their chance to knock out the defending champs, and I think they're going to do it.
Yeah, I agree. It was a bad start for Tom's Tyrants. A great one for Forge Flyers, and as you say, Tom's Tyrants definitely. I think their best players are still here to play. They've just got so many good players on their team. And I think they've definitely still got a chance. I mean, Forge Flyers, just looking down, both their running backs have the worst matchups possible. John Brown is the only other player there I see that's a real threat, but with his injuries, he's really not been doing much lately. So I think if Forge Flyers win, they're going to need Kirk Cousins to put up about 40 points, quite honestly. Johnson obviously got them off to a great start, but I just don't see anyone else on that team doing enough to make a difference other than Cousins. While on Tom's Tyrants side of the ball, I could see a handful of players doing a great deal. So even though it's a nice start, I think I'm actually going to go with Tom's Tyrants to win that game, much to your dismay.
And everyone's dismay.
Yes.
Everyone in the playoff race bar Nige will just be thinking, oh God, here we go again.
Yeah, pretty much. So our final game here, the Homosexuals take on the Dream Team, and this matchup has also never happened before. First time these two have played. Obviously, Homosexuals left at the end of the 2010 season, and the Dream Team came in at the start of the 2011. So first time these guys have been in the league at the same time. Both these teams still in the playoff race. Dream Team coming off of a 2-game losing streak, while Homosexuals fresh off a win. Dream Team looking to keep winning, keep a hold of that division. Projections certainly on their side, and what's projected to be a pretty low score, 93-57. There were a few players, actually quite a few players in this game. On Dream Team's side of the ball, they only got 8 points from Greg Olsen and Devontae Adams, but that's darn sight better than what happened to the Homosexuals. James Jones got 0. Mason Crosby got 9. But Tony Romo, obviously getting injured, got negative 1.6. And so they're on 7 right now from 3 players. Safe to say that the Dream Team are going to just walk to the bank with this one?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's safe just yet. Obviously, the Homosexuals now not playing the Tuck Fards decided that they would go to another stinker. And here's very much the reason why I got rid of James Jones. He's pretty much, he has one good week, and then he just couldn't keep up the form he had in at the start of the season.
He also had a terrible game. He could drop the game-winning touchdown. Yeah,
absolutely. So that's the reason why he is a bit of a loose cannon, and that's why he was dropped. And Homosexuals saw an opportunity. It won them the game last week, and now it might very well lose them the game. Man, the Homosexuals had a really poor night last night, and it doesn't look good. But then again, the Dream Team had a disaster as well. only 14 receiving yards for Devontae Adams and 70 receiving yards for Greg Olsen. So they've only got 8 points from 2 players. So I don't know. I think Dream Team will take it, but it's not. This game isn't over just yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Dream Team will take it too, but I think it is pretty much over. I just don't see the players left for homosexuals, even if they sub guys in like Beckham and Cooks, making enough of a difference. The Dream Team have kind of emerged as one of the most consistent teams in the league. Even in last week's bad week, they still got like 95 or something. So I just can't see them losing this one. So I'll go with the Dream Team, and that wraps up all the matchups. So obviously going into week 12 after this week, only 2 games left, and we might actually have a little bit of clarity, dare I say, on the playoff race, or we'll at least be able to hopefully eliminate a few teams come next week. You looking forward to Sunday?
Oh, absolutely! It's gonna, like I said, it's gonna be squeaky bum time, and you're gonna have a load of teams knocked out this week. So hopefully, it's gonna it's going to be still exciting, but you're going to have a much clearer playoff race rather than what we've got at the moment, which is it could go to anyone.
Exactly. And we'll hopefully be back on Wednesday, the usual day, to recap the teams that have been knocked out. So thanks for joining us again, Phil, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, I'll see you next week, where I'll be 9-1 against the Bear Destinators.
If you say so. Goodbye.